So we're live.
Zoom's new feature. I don't know how to turn that off. I'll have to look and see.
I think it's to let everybody know so they can jump off if they don't want to be recorded.
Yep.
Awesome. We're streaming right now, and we got people kind of coming in the audience now, and they're going to probably see the live stream on Facebook, and it's going to remind them to come on in. But tonight, we have a special night because we have two couples that are in the hot seat tonight. So we have Juliana and Jared, who are our success couple. They're the ones who actually made it work, and they are married. And then we have a dating couple tonight, which is our very own Celeste and Everett. And and Everett's muted, so I'm going to unmute him. There you go.
Maybe.
So, yeah, so we have our in progress long distance relationship going. So, yeah, tonight's topic is going to be an interesting one. This is another hot topic that we're doing. Can be controversial. There are people who are okay with long distance relationships. There are people who are not okay with long distance relationships. And then I have co-hosts tonight, Terry and Tara, right? So we have both you guys out here. I'll start off with the host real quick. Terry, have you ever been in a long distance relationship?
Yeah, a couple times.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Like, are you currently in one? I should have asked, I guess.
No, no, I'm not.
And Tara, how about you?
Yeah, actually, I met my ex-husband online. It was in a long distance relationship with him. So yeah,
Awesome,
I've done it.
awesome. Yeah. Excellent. So tonight's topic will be an interesting topic, but and I'll answer the question myself too. I have been in long distance relationships before. The last serious relationship I was in Mexico City, and the person I was in a relationship with was in California, and so, but it was at that time it was not for me. So it was difficult for me, and we can get that later during the discussion, but. I'm still on the fence. I'm not giving up on long distance relationships, but so anyway, so welcome everyone, and if you guys like the podcast, we do the disclaimers. If you like our podcast, if it's your first time here, go and join the group on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel where you can see past episodes of topics. And go to our YouTube channel, and there you can subscribe, and then click the little bell, and the little bell will always alert you to when we have, new fresh videos that we upload there. So we are a podcast that we don't do any post editing. We try not to do any post editing. So what you see is what we did that night. So it's usually start to finish. So it's kind of rough around the edges sometimes. So, but that's good though. We don't do any editing. All right, so to the podcast. All right, so let's see. I don't know who to start with first. I guess Juliana and Jared. Tell us your story. Tell us how you guys met.
Was it 35 plus?
We reconnected in the LDS 35 plus group, the one that Terry runs.
Yeah.
And we actually discovered after starting to message each other that we had a history of knowing each other from like 20 years ago. We were both active duty Marines when we first came across each other. And we were both stationed at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina and attended the same building. We were in different wards. So we came across each other, but weren't really interacting with each other because we were married to other people. And then a couple divorces later, and running through the singles scene, we came across each other again, and Jared reached out to me because of some tattoo posts and because he saw on my profile that I was a Marine. And as soon as we started messaging each other, it was like we were best friends. So I think awesome. Our first night we talked for 4 hours, something like that. And
That's
then,
a good sign. That's a good sign.
Yeah, it was just the conversation just kept going, and it wasn't forced and it wasn't fake flirty. It was just like we were both like we had just been best friends forever and had just taken a break and were reconnecting. So then we dated for a few months and he proposed to me this past October. And because I was about to retire from the Marine Corps and choosing a place to live, we ended up getting married in November, and I moved to Utah to live with him in December, right after retirement.
Wow. So you guys have been married how long now then?
6 months.
6 months. That's pretty awesome. How long did you guys date?
It was,
Officially, what, 4 months?
yeah, because October proposed. So it's about 3.
Yeah, 3 or 4. It was about 3 between like talking and getting engaged.
And then all the way to the
and
marriage
about
in
4 to
November.
marriage.
Yeah, 4 months.
It was
Oh,
really
that's
quick, but it was kind of one of those things where we went, well, we have a history together. It's not like we just met 2 seconds ago.
So this comes up on the board all the time, but what did he say to you for you to write back to him? That's like the number one question I always see is like, what, you didn't just say hi or how are you?
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't, so I tell her this all the time. I wasn't trying to hit on her or date her. I just scrolled her profile and I saw that she's a Marine. I'm like, hey, you're a Marine. And it actually almost X'd me.
yeah, I was actually anti-dating Marines because the majority of the ones that I've met have just been not the most stable individuals. And so he had to overcome that hurdle. But
So how did those first, so how'd those first conversations go then?
he literally started out with, so you're a Marine, huh?
Oh, okay.
And I went, yeah, most days. And then we just sort of started trading back and forth. And it just, the dynamic, even over text, was immediately so friendly and just so down to earth. And then he asked if he could polo me sometime. And I went, well, instead of poloing, why don't you just get on FaceTime or something and have a real conversation with me? And that conversation just kept going every single day, right up until we got married.
Did you guys usually talk through video or just on the, like, how did you guys normally talk?
Mostly like throughout the workday, it'd be Marco Polo. And if it was like, say, in the evening hours, it was almost like I got off work and I was driving home and it was, I think, like FaceTime. And half the time we weren't even doing anything, like guys making food or she's making food, and there's like dogs and kids running around. And we just kind of let the video run and we're talking, kids would come up and say hi. And it would go on forever. And then we'd probably jump off for a minute, like, hey, I'm gonna go do my workout. And then we'd jump back on and it would go basically FaceTime until we got tired. Or she would go to sleep because she's hours ahead of me. And then after I got done working out, showering, everything, I'd give her a call back and it's 1 a.m. at her time, but it's 11 p.m. my time. And then wake her back up. So she's sacrificing her sleep to try to make it work.
Wow, that's cool.
How did you guys work out travel? Like, how did that topic even come up? When did you guys know that you wanted to actually travel to see each other? And
You bought a plane ticket?
finances look like in that?
The first plane ticket he bought, he purchased the day after he reached out to me the first time. My whole stance with long distance dating, because I had had a lot of people reach out to me, was I'm happy to consider you, but you have to be willing to fly out here and take me on some dates so I can make sure that we're compatible in person. And I gave that to him and he immediately bought a plane ticket. Everybody else was like, well, I don't know, sometime. I really couldn't legally fly out to see him at the time because I was still active duty and I was prohibited from traveling because of COVID.
And did you guys share the expenses with that, or how did you work that out?
No, so I paid for it. And at first I think it went for a while because I bought the first one, the second one. And then I think when they started getting a little back to back, there's a time or two where she paid, but I paid her back. She's like, hey, I got the money right now. Because I was looking at the schedule and I was like, I don't get paid for 2 more weeks. So she's like, if you wait, the flights are going to go up. So she'd buy, a couple of times she bought it and I paid her back. But I paid all the travel costs. And then
Typically I would pay for any activities that we did while we were here. So it was kind of a financial split that way.
Wait, good.
Good. All right, so Everett, Celeste,
Yes.
how did you guys meet?
who do you want to answer this? Celeste, why don't you answer this?
Well, you were talking. Go ahead. You're doing good.
Oh, I was talking. Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of just like I think people normally do on the groups. I saw Celeste, I think, post some introductory post. I mean, this was almost a year ago, I think a year ago in July. And I thought, well, she seems pretty and she seems normal. Sometimes there's posts that you're like, what the heck did I just read? Is this person like from planet Earth or whatever? But, you know, she seemed normal and nice. And so I'm like, she's going to get snatched up quick, but I'll reach out to her and say hi. And, you know, if something comes of it, great. If not, that's okay too. So that's kind of, I guess, how it started. And then we just started chatting. But I think Celeste had like 500 guys like chatting with her at the same time. So maybe it was like 5,000.
500 likes. I think she had 500 likes.
I don't know about that, but I had a
What
few.
did he say to you, Celeste? What did Everett say for you to start to talk to him instead of somebody else? If you really had that many, people talking to you.
Well, I was talking to a lot of people, but the thing is with Everett is he's just super witty. He's hilarious. So, and he's a really good communicator. No, it's true. He's a really good communicator through written word and verbally, obviously. But so like our texts were like a mile long. They're like novels back and forth, which I truly enjoyed. So like our first day of talking was literally like all day of just like these really long messages, and he just kept me laughing. I was like, who is this guy? He is stinking funny. So that's how he got my attention, his humor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember what his first message said?
He said something like, hey, I waited a couple days to reach out because I'm sure you're bombarded with messages, but just wanted to say hi. And you live in Texas. I grew up in Texas. You know, anytime you bring in Texas, it's going to be a good connection, right? So, that it was just kind of general that way. And then I just reached back out and I was like, hey, Texas, that's cool. So,
okay.
And then from there, it was
You
like,
allowed for the ice to be broken. That's good. Yeah. There's a whole protocol, right? There's a whole protocol. You ladies can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a whole protocol of like, you don't DM like right out, or no, you don't friend request. You don't friend request like out of the blue. Is that kind of right? No?
Yeah. I'd say that's true.
and you just say hi.
I feel like girls do that. That's like a girl thing. Instead of reaching out and saying hi to you, they send you a friend request. So I just get friend requests and I'm like, I don't know this person. And they could be friends with my ex and I'd rather not go down that road. So I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do with this. At least just say hi. Hi, I'm not like someone that's crazy and looking to stalk you. I'm just wanting to say hi. So anyways, girls, I think, send the friend requests. Guys send the messages, I would hope. I don't know. Maybe there's some guys who do friend requests, but
Yeah, sometimes I don't.
I think with the guys is different. Like I've heard from people that you want to like start off like commenting on their posts. You maybe comment like, maybe on the selfie Sunday or something. You without being creepy, you say something like, oh, you have a nice smile, or something like that. And if they chime back and say, thank you, so do you, or something, then maybe you can then escalate to like a direct message without a friend request. And if that goes well, then you could maybe, then go with a friend request.
I would say for me, it was always more likely that I would talk to somebody if I had seen them interacting on posts in the group and I felt like the things they were saying were intelligent. I don't have a lot of patience for people who have bigoted or mean-spirited attitudes towards people. And so if I had seen people interacting with other people in the groups and they seemed kind and intelligent and had meaningful things to say, then if they reached out to me, and definitely reaching out through messages before a friend request, cold friend requests were almost always turned down because the number of people who were pretending to be Army generals. And I had met half of the actual people they were pretending to be. And so they try to hit on me and I'm like, say hi to your wife because I know her. But Like, yeah, definitely if you have intelligent things to say and you interact with other people in a meaningful way in the groups, then you're way more likely to get a positive response from a direct message.
Pretty awesome.
So who made the first trip then? You, Celeste, or Everett? I know Everett loves to fly.
I did. Absolutely. Yep. He has.
So how long did it take you to book that airfare? and
I'll
come out?
let Everett explain that side of the story.
I asked
It's
you,
going to be a
Celeste.
really long night.
Asking
Celeste
me?
defaults
I
everything.
asked you, Celeste.
It took a while. So we started talking in July and I flew out like beginning of November, I believe. So yeah, a few months.
Yeah.
Several months.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad.
Few months or 2 months?
Well,
She said a few.
4 months. I said a few. So 4 months. Yeah, 4 months later.
Yeah.
But we spoke like every single day, pretty much. So
Oh, that's nice.
So
yeah.
what's your choice of communication? What is your favorite choice of communication?
To me,
Who are you asking that to?
Yes. Both of you.
I like Zoom meetings. That's my favorite. I like our VIP time after the podcast.
That explains the 10 o'clock cutoff time.
It's midnight my time. So.
Right.
Yeah, I always think like, well, this won't go very long because it's like 10 o'clock or something. And then like 2 o'clock in the morning, like, okay, I've got to get to bed. Like I'm going to be there tomorrow. So it's bad.
How about you,
for
Jared?
Video calls, phone calls, texting, like didn't really get an answer.
For me, I said video call. I said Zoom.
Okay, Everett.
Yeah, probably Zoom is the best because you can see each other. I would imagine Juliana and Jared probably did a little bit of both, right? Like, I don't know if you guys did Zoom or virtual dating that way or anything like that, but I mean, it's always kind of nice to be able to see the other person.
Yeah.
Even if it's virtually.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you can build a better connection if you have that emotion and you can just see, how they react to you. I think it just helps. That's just my take.
So Jared and Juliana, what was your favorite way of communicating with each other? Was it, like a little nice text in the morning, good morning, or was it like a full-on video call?
We did all the things. We texted in the mornings and we would text throughout the day because by the time he woke up, I was already at work. But definitely those nighttime video calls were my favorite. I loved seeing his face every night and just interacting and laughing with each other. And it almost made it feel real, like we were in each other's kitchens and in each other's rooms as we were going throughout our lives. Like he was telling me the other day, he was looking back on some old pictures and things that we had taken, and he realized that he took a picture of himself video calling with me while he was making dinner. And in his head, he remembered that as me being there with him making dinner, not as us being on video call. So the video definitely makes it feel a lot more real and a lot more interactive.
When
That's
you guys
pretty awesome.
actually finally met face to face, were there any surprises? Like, did you think he was going to be taller or smell like Irish Spring soap? Or I don't know. What was surprising?
I think I was relieved because she told me how tall she was and everything, but in my head, I think I built her up. I was like, what if she's too tall? I don't want to be that guy. And I got there.
You never be too tall.
What's that?
He likes the tall ones.
You never be too tall.
Corey wants to date a WNBA player, so.
No, she was just the right height, and I felt really relieved. And I was really worried that what if, even though I saw her video like a million times, but when I got there, it felt like I already knew who she was. It felt like we've been hanging out the whole time anyway, even though it was all virtual for almost a month before I met her in person. So I can't really say any surprises except for I was excited that she wasn't too tall.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest surprise was how comfortable we already were with each other and how much it felt. So I have a history of a lot of like deployment goodbyes and things like that. And it really just felt as though we had been apart for a while and we're saying hello again. It didn't feel like our first time meeting in person.
Okay. Here's your first hot seat question. So when you guys first met in person, how long before you kissed? Was it right away or did you guys wait a while?
Right away. Because in my brain, I was like, I'm gonna do the date thing and do the end of the night kiss, but then I met her and it just kind of naturally just happened. And it was like a mutual naturally happened. So it wasn't that awkward, weird part. We both just kind of kissed and connected.
Yeah, I was right there in the airport.
Like
when I
right
went to
at the-
pick him up.
Yeah.
Wow.
The baggage
That's
claim.
romantic.
So I have to
That's
ask
awesome.
though, as you were flying there, Jared, were you thinking, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do if I just don't have that connection in person?
Were you asking the both of us or did you?
She asked you.
I asked you,
I
Jared.
actually had that fear. I
Yeah.
was thinking, this is weird. What am I doing? What if this doesn't work out? Flying across the country, it costs us so much money. And I was freaking out. And there's a part of me that almost failed. I'm like, no, just do it. What if it turned? And I think I communicated that too a little
Yeah,
bit.
I knew that he was afraid. So that was one of the big things that made our relationship work was that we didn't hide our fears from each other. We talked it through. And so each of us knew what things the other person was afraid of or vulnerable about. And we were able to kind of work through that.
She spun it though. She said, well, what if? Like, what if it's good? What if it's amazing? And
Ooh,
so
like that
she-
song. Have you heard that What If song?
Yeah, the what if song, exactly. I was kind of like, yeah, what if it doesn't work? But what if it's the best thing you've ever had in your life? What if we meet and it's the most amazing thing ever? Would you want to give that up? And so he showed up and it worked out and it has been the best thing ever.
And I thought, I was like, well, I've been there. I used to live there. I guess if it doesn't work out, I can hang out in Jacksonville for 4 days. You know,
There's nothing.
hang out at the wall.
That's awesome. Okay, hot seat question goes to Celeste and Everett. Same question. Was it an immediate kiss off the plane or was it like, let's figure out maybe a couple days from now?
Who do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I was like, you need to let Everett take this, and I took the last
I like
one.
how you guys are avoiding this. Best
No, I find
guess
okay. Before you
ever.
answer, yeah. Before you answer, I like the audience to notice the contrast to the married couple and the dating couple. Like the married couple is like answering their own questions, filling in the blanks, like starting off an answer. She's finishing it. He's, and the Celeste and Everett are like, I don't want to offend you. Why don't you go? No, you go.
I don't think I'm not too worried about offending. I think it's more just, I don't know. Celeste gets embarrassed. I'm trying not to embarrass her.
Oh my gosh, don't make it about me.
I'm going to put it all on Celeste.
That's definitely
I'll
Everett.
come back for Celeste.
I am totally fine.
It's totally Everett.
It is Everett.
Oh, it's all me. Okay. All right.
Don't avoid the question. The
No,
question
answer it.
is valid.
So I'll just say this. So for me, going into a relationship again, it was super important to go very, very slow. In my last relationship, it was, drop dead, like this is amazing and sparks and fireworks and everything's like amazing. And so I thought, well, that obviously didn't work out because I feel like that happens a lot in relationships at the beginning. People just have these like intense feelings and sparks. And I'm like, I don't want to let that overpower any sort of judgment. I want to make sure that everything is just on the up and up and move super slow. And so we didn't kiss right away. No, I think Celeste was kind of bummed about that.
Was she? What's the last? What's your
She was.
answer?
Oh no, we didn't kiss till the second day, I think.
Yeah.
That I was
Second day. Wow, that's a lot of tension built up.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's that night. I can't remember. I just remember like thinking maybe my thought was, well, maybe just I looked different or there was something about me that was different than what he had seen on video or whatever. Because there is a lot to be said. Like in person is different than over video.
Yeah.
And so even if you think you know the person and you think in your mind you've created this individual, and then if you see him in life, it's kind of like maybe there's this moment of like, this is not what I expected. And so I kind of thought maybe that's where he was at.
Yeah,
So.
I wanted to build it up too, so that when she saw me in real life, it was like she already had super low expectations. So that way, like I could supersede those very easily. So I told her like I was 5'7", or maybe I told you I was like 5'6" or something like that. And
I
Oh,
knew you were not 5'7". We told Hannah
Did
you
you
were.
tell her about the third nipple, Everett? That
oh yeah,
there's
I
no
forgot all
surprises?
about that. Yeah. No, it just yeah, I don't know. For me, I guess in my kind of thinking on things, I don't want to force anything, and I didn't want to go too quick and make it be like, okay, gosh, we got together and it was hot and heavy and it was like passionate and all of that kind of stuff. I just wanted to be like, I want it to be normal and settled and make a wise choice because I don't know. I had the hot and heavy before and it didn't work out. I wanted something that made a lot of sense and was kind of more the long distance rather than the short sprint, if that makes any sense.
So were there any surprises with you guys when you guys first met?
I don't know. Were you surprised, Celeste? I'm not 5'7". Oh my gosh.
No, you didn't tell me you're 5'7". You told Hannah you were 5'7", but no.
I think you told Hannah I was 5'7".
Well, that's probably true. We probably come up with a plan to tell Hannah that you were 5'7". But no, like no, I genuinely thought, okay, yeah. I mean, it was perfect to me. So I mean, I just was worried he was thinking opposite of me. So
Yeah.
So Hannah says that you all mess with me big time. I like her Texas accent there, y'all.
well, hey, she's from Texas too. So
Right.
So Everett and Celeste, you guys both have kids, right? And how close in age are they? And do they get along? Well, have they even met?
Is this one for me or for Celeste?
I'll go. Okay,
Celeste.
so I do have kids. I've got 4. Everett's got 2. So he's got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. And then I've got twin 10-year-olds. So, and they're all girls. So that'd be quite a gaggle of girls at the same time if it got to that point. But then I have 2 older kids as well. And they have not
Have they met?
No, not yet.
Not yet. No, we're trying to plan a kind of a trip to a water park, amusement park with all the kids and everything else. It's just it's finding like dates that are going to work for all of us, make that work. We're working on it.
Yeah, the whole travel is different. I mean, I'm sure that Juliana and Jared can like completely agree. Like when you're having to travel to try to meet and interact and lining up schedules and kids schedules and school schedules and other exes having the kids schedules, like it just becomes really challenging. But if you feel it's worth the effort, then you just make it work somehow. So don't you feel like is that how you guys feel about it too?
Oh yeah, we had to do a lot of coordinating in order to make any kind of visits or meets or anything work, especially with the kids.
So how many kids do you guys have, Jared and Juliana?
6.
So how many of goes to each one of
So I have 2 daughters, and then you have your 4. So 3 boys and a girl.
On my
do they
side.
all live with you right
They
now?
do.
Mostly.
He has 50% custody of his girls, so they're
Oh.
here every other week, and I have full custody of my kids.
Do they all get along?
Mostly,
Yeah, mostly.
as much as any siblings would, I guess.
Cool.
How old are they?
17, 16, 15.
13, 12, and 11.
Good
Wow.
spread.
Yep.
And your teenagers don't fight or anything? That's awesome.
Now the older ones are pretty chill. It's like-
They're the most chill ones, honestly.
Yeah,
It's the 12 and 13-year-old that are sometimes butting heads, but mostly everybody else is pretty even keel about stuff.
yeah.
That's cool.
So Jared, what was your favorite date with Juliana while you were dating before you were married?
So I'd say my favorite. Well, shoot. There's a few. But I'd say the first like in person real date. That was because we met. I've been to Onslow Beach, which is a beach outside of. It's on Camp Lejeune. It's actually where we got married. But yeah, so it has like a lot of meaning. But the first date we met on the beach. She picked me up from the airport, went straight to the beach. We sat on the bench, which actually ended up being where we had our wedding reception. And she made like this really healthy dinner, and instead of going out to eat, she brought it. We ate on the beach, walked on the beach, and it was like in the night, so kind of that evening,
Sunset on the beach.
Yeah, watch the
type
sun
thing.
go down, had the whole evening date going on. And there's a few, but that would have to be my favorite, and that's one I probably reference the most.
Yeah. And it almost felt like that whole weekend was one big date because we went back to the beach to hang out with one of his friends, and we took my daughter to the beach, and there was a guy there that was playing music on his guitar and just kind of doing the beachy jam out session, and we danced on the beach, and it was just kind of like,
Did kayaking.
yeah, we did kayaking. So
With-
it was almost like that whole weekend was just one
Like
date.
a big, huge date weekend.
Aw. And how long did you guys met like each other's parents and family?
Was it the second time I came out when I met it was the second.
When you met my parents?
I think so. Yeah, unless I'm remembering wrong, I think it was the second time I came out. So it was 7, 8, 9. I think about 2 months after dating, she said, "Hey, are you both getting on the call?" And it was like a FaceTime call with her parents, and they live in Colorado. So we were sitting in the truck together, and then that's when we did the introduction thing, and met mom and dad. And then she didn't meet mine until after we were married because they live in Utah. My mom lives in Utah.
We did a video chat with your mom too. While I
Shortly.
was still working on the RV and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was for in-person, both parents actually couldn't come because of COVID, both sets. So both sets of parents for in-person we met kind of the first week we were married when I was doing the cross-country trip to move out here to be with him. So the deed was already done by the time that they met him in person. Nobody could object.
Mm-hmm.
So what's like the craziest thing you guys did over video? Like, did you guys go toilet paper a house? Did you rob a mall? Did you
I don't know. I
bury a body?
Nope. I remember one time we were on the forever meal prepping, and that's the one that I thought we were doing in person. And then I looked at a photo and I had the picture of the food with her on the phone, and I was like, "Oh, I thought we did that in person, but that actually is all virtual." But I remember meal prepping the whole freaking day, like Sunday. And I don't know if that's like crazy, but it was just, I don't know if there was really anything crazy. Maybe my kids fighting. on the
Yeah,
call.
I don't know. I don't think there was really any craziness while we were video dating. We did a few Netflix dates where we would both start the
that
movie
was
at the same
cool.
time. But not really anything weird. Our crazy stuff we mostly did in person, so there wasn't any evidence.
Oh yeah, smart. I like the way you think.
So I have a question for you guys. Did you have any challenges while you were in the dating stage where you just thought, maybe this just isn't worth it?
No, that didn't come up at all. On either. Challenges, like we didn't have our own challenges. It was more
Exes.
X challenges, like trying to interfere with.
There was some ex drama trying to tell him he couldn't travel with his kids.
It shouldn't be dating.
Shouldn't be dating. Yeah, his ex-wife tried to tell him that he needed to live with me for 2 years before he was allowed to marry me. Like she gets the vote.
Yeah, no, nothing with us. Which is actually cool because I mean it's popped up in other relationships, but it never came up as like, I don't know if this is a thing.
Yeah.
It just flowed.
Yeah, anything that had the potential to be contentious really ended up just being a light conversation, and we just kind of talked about it and we were like, okay, that sounds good. Which was surprising because there were a lot of things that could have been contentious, and we just kind of talked about it, and both people sounded really, really reasonable. So we didn't actually have to have any kind of huge challenges like that.
Yeah.
How about you, Celeste and Everett? What's the craziest thing you guys have had to do virtually?
Have had to do virtually?
Or that want or did, or
Oh, I don't know about craziness. We've tried to be more creative, I would say. So one thing that we like to do is we binge watch. We do like Netflix parties, and we'll binge watch. So we were binging the Sherlock series with what's his name, Benedict Cumberbatch or whatever that actor's name is. So it's kind of, if you guys have ever done that before, that's kind of fun. But we
how does that work?
So
Like,
go ahead.
Just watch TV and somebody's like, how does that work?
Yeah, Eric's kind of got it right. Like one watches, one sleeps. I mean, I may have low grade narcolepsy or something like that when it comes to movies at night. but essentially you've got like a little plugin in Chrome, and one person will start Netflix and then just copy the link, send it to the other person, and then they click on it, and it syncs up what you're watching. And then it creates, just like this Zoom meeting, a little chat window on the side. So while you guys are sitting there watching, you can chat back and forth. And if something happens on Celeste's end where she's like, hey, I need to pause it real quick, I need to run to the bathroom, or kids walked in and like need something, or whatever that might be, she can pause it. I'll pause it on my end too. It's just like we're sitting there watching it together. So unless I'm asleep, that may have happened once. Or...
So texts go unanswered and Celeste knows you zonked out.
Right. Yeah, I got to get my answers in here before Celeste starts telling everybody how much I actually fall asleep. So yeah, but we've also done, I don't know if Jared and Juliana did this, but one of the things for us is that we've had like virtual like Zoom dates. So like we'll Uber eat, send food to each other, then we'll sit there. And this was kind of early on. We did this more so than recently, but it's almost like having dinner and then you're on a Zoom meeting together. And then we played like online board games. I add an asterisk to play, because more like I got slaughtered on online board games because Celeste wins every time. I think we played like 40 games and I won one. So it wasn't really fair. She cheated the whole time. That's my story. So
I don't need to cheat.
somehow, some way. But yeah, we've just tried to find creative things to do. It's harder for us to travel, I think. I have my kids every weekend. So, and my ex isn't really one that I can just say like, hey, I'm taking this weekend off because I'm going to be gone. Because then that creates all kinds of problems about how she claims I'm going to abandon my kids and yada, yada, yada. So we've had to find ways to be creative around it. Long story short. So I totally get Jared and Juliana's ex drama. We've had some of that as well, but yeah, we've just tried to find ways to stay above that and have fun at the same time.
Well, I think doing this podcast is like a crazy thing that you guys will always look back on as having done while you're dating. This is, really, it's kind of cool though.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So how many times have you guys seen each other in person?
Everett and I? Twice.
Oh,
Only twice, really?
Twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. We got another trip coming up here in a week and a half.
Yep.
So yeah.
Are you guys going to rendezvous somewhere, or is somebody coming to Texas?
No, I'm going to Washington. He's got his girls again. That's kind of how things go. So
yeah, it's kind of a long drama situation with the ex as far as like getting time away. So yeah, it's just easier this way. So I can buy the ticket and she can come out, and that's kind of nice. Yeah,
I know. Well, Hannah says rendezvous in Las Vegas. So a hint.
Yeah, right.
Juliana, she's so funny.
Yeah, that's so, I take everything really slow and then like rush it all at the end and just run off to Vegas.
Yeah, you go into a little white chapel in Las Vegas and you guys are like hitched.
I already did the little white chapel the first time around. It didn't work out very well. So that's not on my
white
list.
chapel. I did the little white chapel also. So
that's right. I remember us talking about that. Yeah, nope. No little white chapels for me.
Yeah.
That's like the most famous one. I think like Joan Rivers, like a bunch of people have gotten like married at the Little White Chapel. And but everybody says, oh, if you get married in Vegas, it's doomed. I'm like, I was married for 22 years, so it wasn't quite doomed.
All right. I mean, I made it to almost 25. So
would you get married in Vegas again?
I got married in Elko.
That's right, Elko.
Yep.
I got married in Vegas, the original.
You were like right there, Gene. By Elvis.
How about you? And so no Vegas for you guys? No Vegas? No. I think it'd be fun. We can have a podcast like rendezvous, like everybody in the podcast and the show and everybody who attends regularly could show up in Vegas. And we could all go to the Little White Chapel and see Everett.
Yes. Let's do it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It's like, look at the time. I gotta bail, guys.
You guys will be like, we want to get to the room. We're like, no, stay out all night. You guys are like, come on.
Rendezvous in Vegas. Well, I don't know if I'd show up because I'm like, I don't want to do the chapel again. So maybe like Hawaii or something, a little more.
Why I would go.
Hawaii would be a good like wedding rendezvous. So, but see, at least Vegas, like, you know, the regulars could just show up, and if they don't want to go to the wedding, they can go do whatever.
We have
That'd be
some
a-
really beautiful potato fields here in Idaho. I could set you up.
Oh,
Nice.
that was kind of always my dream growing up. Like, man, if only I can like somehow find some girl and whisk her away to Boise and get married
Yeah.
in a field.
In a potato field.
Yeah.
Here's the thing though, he doesn't have to travel to Boise for a potato field. He can just come to Pasco.
Yeah, true. True.
Yeah.
So
So Juliana, you're retired,
Yes.
right? And Jared, you're in the military still?
No, I'm a police officer now.
I knew there was something about you I did not like, and you nailed it. Yeah. Do I look familiar? No, you're kidding. I'm kidding.
He's giving you a few tickets there, Tara.
Probably. So,
Tara's a-
Juliana,
Tara's a-
do you just stay home? Do you stay home and take care of the kids then?
For now, yeah.
Okay.
I've had a few job offers and things like that, but between my military pension and things like that and Jared's income, there isn't really a need for me to work. And his ex moved the kids an hour away. And so on his weeks, we have to drive them an hour to school and then go back and pick them up after school. So I spend about 5 hours a day driving on his custody weeks. It's just not very conducive to me having a job. And if it's not financially necessary, we're just not seeing the logic in me doing it.
No, I think that's awesome. And how old's your youngest?
11.
Oh yeah. So you're still very much needed.
Yeah.
How you liking living in Utah?
It's weird being back. I lived here for about 10 years as a kid, but I haven't lived here for almost 30 years. I think we moved away my freshman year of high school. So it was 1994. Utah's changed a lot since 94, but it's still kind of that special bubble. I honestly, when people were telling me before Jared and I started dating that I should move to Utah, I was kind of like, I don't think I would be able to find anybody there that would really quite understand my flavor. But fortunately I found him first.
So Jared's a flavor, huh? I like
I'm
it.
the flavor. I'm a hard pill to swallow.
Kind of like a Cherries Garcia, but maybe a Jared much. I like that flavor. That's good.
So how do like pets work? I've always wondered that too. You know, we're all like old with our pets. Do you guys have a ton of pets already?
Yeah, there's one right here to the right.
Yeah, we have a cat that decided she wanted to climb onto the table that we have the computer balanced on. So I already had 2 cats and 2 dogs, and he already had 2 cats. So now we have 2 cats, 2 dogs,
And 2 more cats.
or two cats, 4 cats, 2 dogs,
And a fish.
a fish, and we had a bunny, but the bunny is no longer with us.
Oh, poor little bunny.
How about Celeste and Everett? Do you guys have pets?
I have 2 cats. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. I actually have 1 cat, but the second cat belongs to my daughter, who has kind of said that that's now my cat. So I keep trying to pawn it back off on her and say, come get your cat. But yeah. So
How about
Well,
you,
Celeste,
Everett?
you know what? You guys need to get married soon, because Everett, you know what happens when Celeste has 2 cats and she's not married yet? Turns into 4 cats.
actually, that there is validity to that, but that's back when I didn't have kids and I wanted another kid. So I would like get a new cat. So at one point I had 5 cats because anytime I wanted a baby, I would just go get a cat.
this is all very good information to know. I didn't
Yeah.
know about the 5 cats. So having known that, it's been nice being on this podcast. So you guys,
But no, I'm
Oh,
trying to
I
get
have-
mine
I
down
have a
to
very-
1 cat.
Our
I have a
cats
very
are actually
question
the
for
ones
you.
that had the hardest time transitioning. They don't like each other.
The animals.
Well, I have a
So,
pregnant cat,
Jared.
so I was hoping to like pawn the kittens off on somebody and
Oh
it just-
gosh, no, please, no more kittens.
all right.
Yeah, I don't want any more here either.
Yeah.
So Jared and Juliana, question, like temple marriages, were you guys married in the temple prior
Yes.
to meeting each other? Okay, so how did that work out? Did you guys get temple divorces? Like, what was the process?
Yeah, so I started my temple sealing cancellation before I even met Jared. I didn't have a very fun previous marriage. And I just was feeling very tied down by the idea that I was still sealed to him and the idea of potentially meeting somebody that I could fall in love with and then having to go relive all that trauma while I was trying to pursue a marriage. So I was proactive about it and went ahead and started my cancellation. And I actually got the letter back approving it after we had been dating for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, about that.
So that was kind of a relief that I wasn't planning a wedding and also trying to explain to church headquarters why I didn't want to be sealed to my previous husband at the same time. I didn't want to mix and match those two things. And then with Jared.
And then I was sealed previously. And originally when we talked, I think we were just going to do a clearance. And that was my ex's said clearance. But then when it became real, I brought it up again because I guess I talked to the bishop and they said you have to get her approval. She wasn't happy, even though she's engaged. And she said, no, I want a full-blown cancellation. So Juliana suggested, she goes, let's just go for the full cancellation. That way, you don't have this back and forth. It's a said done deal. Mine, I started, I think, in October. And it didn't go all the way through until it was
April.
It took a minute for mine. And it wasn't quite so smooth. It was a lot of back and forth and just kind of delaying. And finally, the stake president got to the point where he's like, she's here, you're here. We're going to counsel, like gather together on this and push forward, because she was kind of just playing the delay game. And then they approved it, like she said, a month ago. And so now we're solid and good to go.
Yeah, she was doing everything she could to stand in the way of it. She was falsely accusing him of being behind on his child support and things like that. And we're like, we can show you financial statements all the way back through the divorce showing he's never been late on anything. She's basically just trying to cause drama. So yeah, X drama.
Yeah.
It sounds like she's probably like spousal drama at the time when you were married to her too. Probably the same kind of drama, just in a different way.
It's very, yeah, definitely.
So that goes to my theory from my podcast when you guys were I had me in the hot seat about the whole. So I'm law enforcement also. So, marriage counselor said, you and I have rescuer personalities. So we like the dramas. We like to rescue them, and we tend to marry some, crazies. It's like firefighters and cops are always marrying crazy women. So
that's definitely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got told, because I see a psychotherapist, and she basically said, at the time you're codependent, you find someone that needs fixing, and that's what you're attracted to, and you try to fix them. Finally,
you're trying to rescue them. You're saving them.
You're trying to save them, and then you realize, okay, I don't want to be codependent anymore. You overcome the codependency, and then that's when she showed up.
Yeah, and military marriages tend to be the same. They just tend to be very just unhealthy and insane. Like a lot of domestic violence, a lot of really crazy stuff. Like 20 years in the Marine Corps, I think I saw everything. Like if you were to just throw a random marriage situation out there that you thought sounded the most toxic thing you'd ever seen, I'd be like, oh yeah, I knew 5 of those. So just the idea of anybody in those high conflict jobs marrying anybody is super risky. But we've fortunately both been through a lot of therapy on our own and have done our own building and healing. And we were both kind of in a place where we were looking for healthy instead of looking for somebody to fix. And I know one of the quotes that I used to throw out there is something to the effect of, you have a savior and you should have a therapist. I'm not either one of them.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I mean, therapy's good. I'm a big fan of it. Like my marriage counselor turned into my therapist after my spouse fired her and told her she was a quack. I was going to report her to the medical board and then left. And so my therapist said, do you know what borderline personality disorder is? And yeah, well, went from there. She became my
I know that one.
after 2 years with her, I got my head kind of unscrewed. So
don't be borderline. No.
They will
All right.
mess your kids up too if you're
Oh yeah.
in a relationship with somebody who is borderline. Wish them well, forgive them from all the way over here for whatever they're doing, but go find somebody who's healthy.
Yep, exactly. All right, so Everett and Celeste, same question. You're like,
Could you
what?
repeat the question?
Temple marriages.
Oh,
Like,
oh.
We haven't been
how are
married
you
in temple
handling
yet.
your own temple marriages?
I am currently still sealed to my ex, but I'm not thinking he would fight me to get that taken care of. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I was sealed to my ex, but she moved on and she's remarried, and we've had our sealing canceled a while ago. So, but all the same, I believe when you're still going to get sealed, they're still going to ask like, okay, what happened? Were you sealed prior? Yes. I think you still have to get, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, but I do believe you still have to get approval to go get sealed again.
You do have to get a sealing clearance. If you've ever been sealed to anybody before, even if the sealing's been canceled, you have to apply for a clearance.
Okay.
So if you're already engaged, it's easier to apply for both at the same time because they'll ask you the name of the person you plan to be sealed to. But it's not as rough once you have already had it canceled, because it's more of an issue of like temple recommend type questions. Are you living worthy? You know, do you have any obligations to a former spouse? That sort of thing.
Gotcha.
And a question from the grandstands is, did they change that a man can be sealed to more than one woman? Yes, men can still be sealed to more than one woman. Women cannot be sealed to more than one man.
But isn't that, I heard that it's only if the other woman is deceased. I hear that there's
no, you can still be alive. The woman doesn't have to cancel her sealing if she doesn't want to. So they will ask the prior spouse if she wants to cancel the sealing, and they can still approve a new sealing. And with the legal divorce on file, they can approve a second sealing with two living women.
Yeah, because they asked my ex if she was okay for a clearance. So basically, you would say I would be hypothetically sealed to 2, but she's like, no way. So that's when we did the cancellation. So we'll only be sealed to each other.
So I want to hear advice from you guys. Like, if just because this really does come up on the board all the time, and everybody says they get ghosted, or you know, everything always fizzles out. So give us advice. Like, if I wanted to date someone in Africa or whatever, give me some advice.
You like, are you talking to them already, or you're just like, I need to find?
Oh, I'll make that up. Yes, I am.
I'd say be intentional, have a logistical plan. We never went like from one visit to another without having the next one planned. So know exactly what your logistics are and know what your next goal is that you're making it towards, as far as when you're going to see each other, when you're going to talk to each other. Jared was amazing about setting dates with me, even though we knew we were going to talk to each other on the phone every single night, but he would still message me and go, when are you available to talk? When are you available for a date? So we never got complacent. He was always very intentional about how he courted me and about how he dated me. And even as far as like, we knew there was an end game for when we could get married and live near each other. We knew that I was retiring, and we knew that one of us was in a logistical position to move. So there was no just mysterious, this might go on for the next 5 years and then fizzle out. We knew that we needed to make a decision about whether we were moving forward or not within a very short period of time.
I absolutely love that. When you say make it intentional, I think that a big mistake that we make as singles is we don't look past just the date. and then you're both sitting there wondering who's going to call next, whose turn is it, and it just fizzles out, not because it would have been a bad thing, but because you kind of let it die because you don't know who's supposed to go next. So I love that you guys like, I love that word, intentional. That's awesome.
So Juliana, I have a question for you. So you said previously that you can be kind of hard to handle. And I'm just curious, how does that work in your long distance relationship, knowing that you're going to be coming together? How does that play out?
My hard to handle was attractive to him. The hard to handle that I am is sort of like, I'm a very raw person. And I always was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to find an LDS guy who really understands that I love Jesus, but also laugh at penis jokes. And so I'm just
awesome.
And even my brothers, they would comment on some of my Facebook posts and things like that, because I'd make jokes. Like I remember there was one where I posted a meme and it was kind of an old-fashioned picture of a guy holding a beheaded head, and it said something to the effect of, if you have a sword in your hand, you can't touch your face. Follow me for more pro-COVID tips, or something like that. And my brother was just like, oh my gosh, you are so weird. How are you going to find an LDS man to marry you when you're this crass about everything? And I was just like, I don't know. Either he's out there or he's not. So he was.
Well, we were already talking at least at that point, so she made a joke.
I was kind of laughing about it, but
like, actually
my brothers didn't know that I was dating Jared already at that point, and I was just kind of laughing, and I was like, he actually thinks it's pretty amazing that I'm that way, because he's a prior service Marine and he's a policeman, and so he likes kind of those raw jokes too. And it's kind of, I'm a lot to handle, like I said, because I won't let people get away with some of the bigoted things they'll say, some of the hateful things they'll say, and try to hide behind the gospel about it. So people will say stuff and I'm like, no, that's not okay. You don't treat people that way. Not everybody's used to people being quite so outspoken as me. But that was actually one of the things that Jared said he found attractive. He really liked that about me. So it was kind of one of those things, I guess, where the different quirks that I've had guys want to break it off with me before because they couldn't quite handle that aspect of my personality. Those were all things that he looked at and he was like, oh, I'm so relieved that you're that way, because I'm that way too, and we're a good match.
So kind of going along that lines just a wee bit. So when you're in a long distance relationship versus being in person, when you don't really know how the fighting style is or how to handle potential arguments or fights, how do you go from a long distance relationship to being now in person and being able to figure that out and still be okay?
Is that for us?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't have all the answers to that, and that was something I was worried about, because I knew, like, okay, here's dating land. I know what marriage land is like, and we all know that. And I knew she was raw, and I also knew she was blunt. And you'll see it in social media if you're in any groups with her. But even in a relationship, like if you do something or say something you shouldn't be, she'll tell you. There's no guessing where you're at with her. Like, you definitely know. But even like I don't even call them arguments, it's more like disagreements, if anything, that we had, which didn't even show up until we were actually married all the way. Like the first one, okay, so like we're driving across in an RV, because I flew out there to get her right after we got married. I went back for 4 days flat to get her, and on the tail end of the drive, I freaking drove the side of the RV through the metal of a Maverick gas station and tore like $7,000 worth of damage right to the RV. And we only been married for like a week or less. And I'm like, and I'm like waiting for all the, and she's like, that's all right, no big deal. And I'm like, serious? and that never stopped. I think I was almost waiting for the boot to drop, and it never dropped. And even when we had like something more serious, it was like, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. And we kind of go like this, and then we kind of come together like, okay. So I don't know if there was a way to figure it out. It just is kind of,
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just learning that our exes are not our next. Because he was expecting me to react in an abusive manner when any kind of conflict would arise. And that's not my personality. I'm more of like my ex-husband had PTSD. And so I spent a decade and a half having to learn really, really good communication skills and learn how to not push each other's buttons. And I learned which things were valuable to fight over and which things weren't. And I would say that 99% of the issues that ever come up in a relationship aren't worth fighting over. Sometimes they're worth talking about and saying, hey, I feel hurt when you do that, or I don't really care for that. It's okay to set boundaries, but you set them as a reasonable person, not screaming and throwing things. And I think that was kind of what he was expecting from me. And as he's learned a little bit more what my style is, he's starting to learn I really am an open book. He'll assume that I'm mad at him or something like that. And I look at him and I'm like, if I'm mad at you, I will tell you. If I'm not telling you I'm mad at you, then I'm not mad at you. And he's just not.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's great. Yeah, that's the borderline. That's the borderline he's used to, because they give you the silent treatment, they shut down, they give you the look, and then they play the games where you have to read their mind, figure out what you did. You play the guessing game. What was it? What was it? What'd I do? I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so there's been a few times where he's messaged me and gone, are you mad at me? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, no, I think it's I'm just sitting here. Why would I be mad at you?
I'm learning what Corey just said. I'm learning unhealthy relationships. Like, if anything, it's like, this is healthy. It's foreign to me. I've never seen healthy before. So it's kind of, I'm actually have to reprogram to learn what healthy is. And it's kind of.
Yeah.
So Everett and Celeste, same question, but just more towards dating, not necessarily towards marriage.
Well, I think this is kind of the $1 million question, and I would imagine this is where a lot of people balk at being in a long distance relationship, because it is harder to find out how well you get along with somebody with all those nuances and things like that. And I think for us with Celeste and I, we've just taken it super, super slow. And I've always told Celeste, I want you to know everything about me. And I want you to, like, when my ex throws shade or something like that, listen to it and make up your mind for yourself. Like, I want to be a completely open book, and I want you to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and make an informed decision that way. And just try and be as open as possible. I mean, I feel like that way, and Celeste always thinks I'm trying to like pawn her off on somebody else, but I just want her to like be completely open to go in any direction and not force anything, and let Heavenly Father kind of lead the way and let things kind of just come together as they're supposed to. And if that's good, and if it just continues to work, then fantastic. But if there's something better for her that comes along, okay too. Or if she sees something like, maybe something from my ex, because she's certainly thrown some wonderful things out there. And she says, gosh, I don't know about this. Okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. I want you to know everything about me and make an informed decision that way. So that way, I mean, I feel like it's sort of like mitigating your risks, right? Like, if you have all the information, then, and at least as much as you possibly can, then you can make a choice that way. Does that make sense?
Sure. Celeste?
Okay, so was the original question about just how you deal with like differences and confrontation and things like that, right?
Yeah, like, so arguments, or what do you, anticipating them, or just your approach?
Right.
Yeah, like, how will we know if we're going to get along, sort of thing, because we're a long distance relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think since you aren't with each other every day, like physically, to see how it does feel and interact together, I think it's important to kind of see how they interact with others, like the storylines they tell you. How do they handle certain topics that pop up? How do they handle themselves on these Facebook pages? I mean, there's lots of things that can give you clues into who the person is and how they deal with things. I've we've had discussions. I've asked him flat out, how did you handle confrontation in your marriage? Like how did you handle that? And I think it's important to know, because for me, I don't want any more like massive challenges. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells and things like that. Like, of course, I don't want to bring my past experiences into this new relationship, right? So I think being open and honest, asking questions, asking the hard questions, is what's important, and I know that Everett gets probably bothered by my constant questioning, but the thing is I need to make sure it's right in my mind, and I need to make sure that I understand him completely, so that I'm not just coming to my own conclusions and assuming that's what he means or whatever. So I do ask a lot of questions, but I think that that's healthy. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. You can't go into make up a fight just to see how you're going to handle it, right? We don't fight. We don't usually have anything that has come up where we really have a massive disagreement. It's been 10
I don't know.
years,
My ex
so-
could make up some great fights.
I'm not your ex, Corey. I'm just saying.
Joe asked like, what was our biggest like disagreement or fight to date? I don't know that we've really had anything. I mean, to give people an idea, when Celeste and I first started talking, I remember people asking like, well, what did you do last night? I'm like, well, after work, I ended up talking to Celeste for like 8 hours on the phone. And I'm not kidding. Like, it was literally like 8 hours, and it would be like pretty much almost every night. Like, yeah, I pulled another 6 hours last night. I'm super exhausted. Like, I'm wiped. I got to take a nap after work or something like that, because you're just dragging during the day, but then go another 6 or 7 hours, So we spent a long time talking about just everything. And I guess our biggest disagreement is true. Tarantulas do exist in Texas. And they do actually, this is a little known fact, they do have like a seasonal migratory pattern to Celeste's house every August or so. So when you see them on the wall while she's sleeping, just know that's
all right. Stop deflecting, Everett. Go back to what you were saying that was going to get you in trouble with Celeste. Come on.
Uh-oh.
We just haven't really, I don't know. I mean, we've weathered some like kind of weird stuff from my ex, but that wasn't really like a fight, I would say, not like that. But it's more like, hey, these are things my ex is going to say like, oh, Everett's a terrible person. Like, you guys shouldn't be together. And she hates Celeste and all these sort of things. And it's just, how does Celeste handle that? Like, for me too, I feel like this is a two-way street. Like, we're both, it's almost like an interview, right? Like, Celeste is getting to know me. Am I like the right fit for her, and vice versa? And so, yeah, the more information, the more we can know about each other, and the more informed decisions.
Oh, I do have a question. It's just personal experience.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I can't stand it when somebody just starts asking me what I feel are useless questions. For me, getting to know somebody, I'd rather just have a nice flowing conversation about many topics, and there's no questions. So did you guys do that to each other?
Like, what was our conversations like, you mean? Like,
yeah, like were they just all across the board, or did you guys really like specifically, like, it feels like sometimes you're going into a job interview and you just have all these questions, you're just like, why are you asking me these questions? Did you guys have a question of that, or did it just flow nicely?
So yeah, I mean, I don't think they were random questions like, okay, Celeste, would you rather have a dog or a cat? Or if you could pick your house, would it rather be purple or pink? Like, nothing like really like that. Like, I remember specifically when Celeste was talking to like 500 guys at the same time, people often tell me like, it's really weird. Like, this guy's telling me that he's totally in love with me. He's had this vision. He's going to marry me, but he doesn't even know how many kids I have, what their names are. Like, he doesn't know anything about me. And I already knew all of that about Celeste. Like, for me, it just feels very natural. Like, okay, I want to know this person. I want to get to know them. And if there's something that's like, I don't know. I mean, people are, to me, fascinating. So I'm going to like ask her stuff, and maybe I'm like, okay, if there comes a time when you're like too much, like, I don't want to like go there, like, cool, then let me know and we won't go there. But for the most part, yeah, I don't think we had many of the cheese ball questions of just maybe at the very, very beginning when we were chatting, but I could read Celeste pretty quickly, and I knew that she was pretty kind, and I could see some things that like she needed, and so we talked about things like that. So yeah. Anyways, what do
Yeah.
you think, Celeste?
I think that
Watch, she has a whole different like story. Like,
no,
yes, it was total cheese questions.
no,
Oh,
that's actually one thing I really enjoyed about talking with Everett is because he did ask a lot of questions that were more like in depth. Like he truly
Yes.
wanted to get to know me. It wasn't like, hey, send me a picture. Hey, I really liked that post you made. Oh, like it wasn't about like physical appearance. It was all about tell me about your past, your childhood, your kids, like how you feel about this, how you feel about that. Like he genuinely wanted to get to know me. And there were people, like he said, that were like thinking that I was going to be their wife and whatever. They didn't know anything about me. They just didn't. They didn't ask any questions. They probably didn't know my kids' names, nothing like that. And I really value that with him and he still does. We still ask a lot of questions and we still try to understand each other better and get to know each other better because that's the progress when you're dating is to try to get to really know who that person is. And I really valued that about him. So I enjoyed that. Still do.
So Celeste and Everett, are you guys the first that you guys have dated online, or did you date anybody online before Everett or before
Okay.
Celeste?
So I was married for almost 25 years.
Okay.
So the last time I dated, there were no cell phones. There was no internet.
So is he the first?
People still
Everett
used
the
an
first?
abacus, Fred Flintstone was driving his car.
That's right. So this is my first. Well, okay. So when I joined the Facebook groups and stuff, yeah, I went on dates. I had, I talked to a lot of people. I did local dating and things like that. But this is the first long distance relationship, online relationship kind of thing, like that's got to this point. Yeah.
Okay. And how about you, Everett?
So I haven't really done like a long distance relationship before. I kind of just always, for me, like spending that time with somebody is very important. So I guess I just never really thought a long distance relationship could be something that worked for me. I mean, I might have been more in Camp Corey on this one where I'm like, oh, long distance relationships. But I was determined this time around to just sort of, probably the best way to put it is like when I was with my counselor, he was like our family, my like couples counselor before, my divorce and everything. And I stuck with him and my ex is just, off doing her own thing. And so with him, I remember talking to him about it. Like, I don't know if I want to get married again. I don't know, like maybe in the millennium when you don't have all these problems and it's just like people are normal and I'm not going to have a borderline personality disordered like spouse, I can just like deal with normalcy in the millennium. Like we'll call it good that day. And he's like, okay, well, while that all sounds fantastic and everything, probably the best thing to do is just let things come to you. Like, don't force anything. Don't worry about like details. Let Heavenly Father worry about all those details. Just do what's right. Let him put the people in front of you. Go live your life, be happy, and things are going to start falling into place as they're going to. Like, never in a million years could I have thought a year ago that here we are with this podcast. I'm on a podcast that I do with this girl that I didn't even know, Celeste, a year ago. And now she's on it regularly with me. Like, that's totally foreign. Like, these things just sort of fell into place. And throughout the entire process, one thing that Celeste has kind of hated a little bit, but I've been very like big on is just letting things kind of germinate naturally. And I've always told her, look, if some other guy comes along and you feel like, hey, Everett, this is the right person, I'm not going to stand in your way. And Celeste always thinks you're just trying to pawn me off on other guys. Like,
okay. What? Okay.
I'm not pawning you off on other guys. She said this like a million times, but for me, I don't want to be like some of these guys that I see that just like, it's almost like a desperation. Like that's like, she's mine, like dibs, and I've got to control that. Like, I'm not going to force anything. I'm going to let things continue to flow as they're supposed to flow and let them fall into place.
And
Fight.
I was just gonna say that.
okay, this is okay. Here's our disagreement. This is our biggest disagreement.
I literally was just getting ready to type that out in the chat. I was like, fight.
Okay.
Now we get Celeste's version. Okay.
No, I mean, okay, just about, he definitely tried to push me away to lots of different guys.
I did not.
Oh, he did. So, who you talking to today? Oh, maybe you should go out with him. I'm like, okay. You want me to? Okay, I will. Like, I don't know. Like, he was always like trying to push me away.
I
But
think sometimes,
I am
in
all
all
about
fairness, Celeste, I'm just gonna say, I think in all fairness, sometimes the guys are a little bit more reserved. Everett, I'm not calling you reserved. I mean, we may have graduated with each other 27 years ago, but nothing has changed. I'm not calling you reserved.
Jared knows me all too well.
Right. I think sometimes when the guys are just a little bit more reserved, they're trying to like test the water out a little bit. They're trying to like put something, just be like, okay, without coming out and saying it, I kind of want to know where you stand and where I stand. And so I think sometimes they do that. And it's not really necessarily to be like, oh, hey, go out with, Billy Bob down the street, or Joe.
unless they tell you to go out with Billy Bob down the street. I mean, when they tell
I
you.
never told you to go out with Billy Bob. I like how it gets like so, like the story gets.
Okay. So how are we going to work past this fight?
Oh. See, here we go. Live fights on the podcast.
Yes, it finally got to fight.
This is a prime example. Show us, how is it done? How is it done?
Okay, but what happens? Like, what happens when you get really mad? What do? Do you just hit off on your computer?
Oh,
Like, you can't really throw anything, right?
I've never been mad at Everett, so I don't know. Oh, he did call me a name once. I'm not going to say what he called me.
Oh,
Oh,
no, it's not calling
don't
you a
say the
name.
but
No, okay, it's not like that. So I said that's exactly like so and so would do. So that was the name because I named that person, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, don't ever compare me to that person again." So
no, oh my gosh, no, he said you're acting like so and so, and I'm like,
okay, is that well?
Okay.
All right.
And then he goes, "Are you mad?" I'm like, "No."
I think this is my favorite podcast ever.
I'm not mad. I'm just going to bring it up for the next.
No, I was hurt because I was like, I'm nothing like that individual, but okay, if you want to say like him, okay.
I'm about to mute you too.
It was pretty innocuous too. It was kind of funny because like it was something that happened on the podcast. I'm like, oh, that's just like so and so would do, and she's like, oh, you compared me to him. Like, oh, it was like the sky had fallen. I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh, he is so blowing that out of proportion.
I thought she was.
I feel like I'm the
I'm not
neutral
mad.
person.
I'll just talk
I
about
want to be in Celeste's corner, but I kind of want to be in Everett's corner, but then I'm just kind of enjoying this too.
You need to be in my corner because the truth is I'm not very drama. Like that's just who I am. And so I'm kind of more of a rational thinker. And so, yeah, I don't get all, I was like, oh, okay, I'm really not like that person, but okay.
Well, it wasn't, I wasn't saying you're like, there's something that like happened. I'm like, oh, that's like that person would do. And she's like, so.
No, he said,
if that's
he said,
name, then.
You were being like, blah. And I'm like, what?
I want to go back to the name calling. What was the name?
I don't know. I'm dying here.
The name was the person.
That's who the name is.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay.
So it wasn't really a name. It was
person.
naming a person. Yeah.
It'd be like
okay. So Everett, a little piece of advice, Everett. So when you're making out with a girl, you make sure you call her by her actual name. Don't call her by some other girl's name.
Good point. Very good point.
That's probably a good piece of advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, for the most part, and even then, like I didn't know that really bothered Celeste because I thought she knew, like, hey, this person does this. We've discussed this a million times. I'm like, oh, you just did exactly the same thing we talked about. And she's like, oh my gosh. So anyways, long story short, after she brought it up for 6 weeks, I get it. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know. I wasn't trying to like insult you. I was just trying to say, like, I'm making an analogy, and that was my fault. I shouldn't have said it. I
didn't bring it up for 6 weeks. Hashtag.
I love the public apology. This is awesome.
Yes, I shouldn't have said it. Okay, I didn't think like before I opened my mouth. It just sort of like, diarrhea of the mouth. It happens.
You need to apologize.
Once or 8 times a day. So
So then Everett, what has Celeste done that's kind of gotten under your skin a little?
Oh,
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna think here for
I
a
want to
second.
just keep this going. Sorry, Juliana and Jared.
I feel bad for Jared and
are trying to
Juliana.
make us have our
now we
first
get to sit
fight.
here and listen to these guys fight for the whole
I
podcast.
know. They're like, we're going to make you two have your first fight on this
Right.
podcast.
No. Julian and Jared are going, I'm so glad we're not like them.
I think we need to start digging into them a little bit, find out their fights.
So I want to hear your answer.
So do I.
Well, Celeste already knows this one. She's just not thinking about it right off the top of her head. But like sometimes Celeste, like she has a way of like overthinking some things. And so she'll be like, so yesterday you were talking about like your shoes and you like your shoes red, and red is kind of the color of blood, and blood is like a really negative thing if somebody gets hurt. So I was just wondering, are you thinking about hurting somebody? I'm like, wait. How did
Why is blood
shoes
negative?
red? What? Like, where are we? How did we get there? So sometimes, but she's always very
So
good.
not true.
She'll just be like, I just have to clarify. Is this what's meant?
Okay, it's because he's super vague when he speaks sometimes. I'm like, so what did you mean by that? This is my thing. And I stand by this 100%, and it is who I am. I will think about it, and I will come up with like I will come up with the worst case scenario, no doubt. And so instead of doing that and like moving forward saying, oh, well, Everett meant this by whatever he said, and then me reacting to it, I will just ask him. I don't see that that's an issue. So I'll say, well, what did you mean by that? Because I kind of felt whatever. And he's been open. He's like, okay, well, this is what I meant by it. And I think it clarifies. I think it's a good trait that I have that I don't.
I'm in Celeste's corner. I totally agree with her. She's taking the initiative to clarify exactly what you mean because you say half a sentence.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was like, I feel like sometimes you've got like this whole conversation in your head, like paragraphs, and then you just give a sentence. And I'm like, well, where's the rest of what goes around that comment? And so, and he's been able, like, once he's explained, like, oh, that totally makes sense. But like, I would rather do that and ask a whole bunch of questions to clarify than me sitting back and being like, oh, he totally meant whatever. Because it's not fair to him. It's not fair to me. And it will end up just sabotaging things. And so I actually think it's a good trait of mine. So I know he's kind of all making it negative, but I actually think
not
it's
making it negative. I'm just saying if there's so the question was, what is it about Celeste that like maybe sometimes kind of drives you crazy? And I'm like, it doesn't drive me crazy, but like sometimes that comes up and I'm like, okay, I'm not exactly sure. Like every now and then she'll come up with a question like, what did you mean by this? And I have to stop and think about it. Like, I didn't mean anything. And I don't even remember what we were talking about when it came up to that. So I have to like kind of play it back in my head. Like it was so innocuous when I said it that to me, it wasn't a big deal, but obviously to Celeste, like it meant something. So that's on me. Like I should clarify more. I totally get that. And I do appreciate that Celeste does clarify because my ex would have been like, oh, I see. He bought popcorn last night. So what he's really doing is sending me a subliminal message that he wants to take some other girl to a movie. Like that's what he's saying. I'm like, what? I just bought popcorn. But you know, it would turn into this major fight. And I'm like, I don't even know what's happening right now. So
no, Everett. It's you bought popcorn and you know I don't like popcorn. You don't know me. You don't love me. That's usually that's the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the path I don't take. So I'm just gonna be real.
See, Jared's
Okay,
laughing
so-
over there because he's like,
By my
I know
purchase.
that all too well. Jared's been
Sure.
down this road. He can empathize. I can tell.
Oh yeah, he's laughing because he's like, oh, I've been there. I bought candy, and it was like, you bought the wrong candy. You don't love me. That's probably the candy of the woman you're banging.
Right? He's over there going, amen. A freaking men.
So Jared and Juliana,
I
do you
just
have
think
anything
it's
to
really-
add to this?
I think it's weird that you bought popcorn in bloody shoes.
Only on Thursdays and a full moon. So it just depends, you know.
Got it.
It's got to be the right mood on everything.
So Jared and Juliana, do you have anything to add on the questions or anything that's been said?
Yeah, I saw a comment in the thread. Someone was saying, well, that's why you always do 4 seasons I've heard the 4 seasons in a vacation and a family trip. And someone presented that information to me and I came into this relationship saying the same thing. And she's like, no. And she was more kind of like what Everett was saying, kind of like just go with the flow, let things happen. And there was some time because she's like, hey, I'm getting retired. I kind of need to know like what's the game plan here. So I mean, that sense as far as when the wedding was planning, that was kind of unnaturally like in a time constraint, but everything else just flowed. I think, and we talked about it. I think for our situation, I think everybody's situation is different, but to put like a box, like saying to have you 4 seasons in a trip, for us, that probably would have been way too long, and that might not have been the best thing for us. So I think don't really try to go by rules and just let it flow naturally and let it happen as it happens. If your time's 6 months, great. If your time's a year or 2 years, great. But I would say if you're feeling it, if things you don't have any of these really deep feelings, I think that's mostly that we watch for versus being nervous in the airport. That's different. But if you don't have any yucky feelings, you're not feeling any red flags, and things appear to be everything you're looking for, I'd say keep going with it. Because in my opinion, this is so someone told me something years ago when I was in an unhealthy relationship. She's like, you could have all these great things, but without all the bad stuff, there's someone out there that actually has that. And I just want to say, yeah, that actually exists. Because every time she does something, I'm like, oh, that's so awesome that you do this. Like, it's so awesome you like skulls. You have skull things all over the house. It's like there's people like you that like skulls, and she sings. It's like that could be the same person, you know?
Yeah, like I quilt and I sew and I crochet and I can also stab things. I'm just kind of like a jack of all trades, I guess.
She could pee in your dead skull, like, you know.
Yeah, I would just say don't settle. Like the biggest thing that I had to remind myself of constantly was, after all those years of dealing with PTSD and all the things that made me have to feel all the balls of anxiety as a spouse, the one thing I promised myself after I got divorced is that I would seek happiness. I was going to be happy. I was going to seek joy. I was going to seek the positive things in my life and draw those things to me. And if somebody else wanted to come ride my happy train with me, they were welcome to do that. But I was going to be happy with or without a relationship. And choosing that I was going to be happy no matter what my situation was really what made me the most open to finding the most positive relationship I could, because I wasn't embracing negative relationships. I was requiring that my relationship be positive.
Oh, and I want to go off what Everett said. I have ADHD, so I just had a thing. It just like left me. When it comes back on play, right? Now it's just gone.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, I would say kind of some of the stuff you guys were talking about. Trust the other person. Unless you're given an indication that they really are being malicious, or they really are trying to start a fight, or they really are trying to do something to hurt you, assume that their intentions are good. They're in a relationship with you for a reason. And unless they're showing signs of mental instability, if you've got a positive, healthy person you're in a relationship with, assume that the things they're saying are not meant in a negative way, unless you're seeing evidence otherwise.
I agree.
That's a great way. It's a good segue to for those out there kind of worrying about long distance relationships, and me who I've been on the fence, kind of lean towards like negatory. I like Juliana's Marine get to, and like, telling Jared like, all right, where are we going with this? Where's the battle plan? Like, I need the ops plan right now. Where are we going with this?
Jared sounded
awesome.
He pulled out the missionary routine. He's like setting dates and like getting commitments and stuff. Like, will you do this by this date? Like, okay.
I'm very structured.
Well, and that was kind of my personality too. Initially, when I was like, if you want to date me, you have to really come out here and date me. He was like, yeah, we could maybe do that sometime. And I'm like, no, when?
Yeah.
Because I'm retiring in November and I might not move your direction. I might go to Colorado, or I might go to Virginia. If you want me to aim my direction towards you, I need to actually know what you're doing, and I need to know that in enough time to make decisions about you.
Because I was giving her like, maybe next July, and this was last July, maybe next July. Well, I don't know, maybe November, and I was kind of doing the wishy-washy game. And then I kind of got a sense that at the end of that first video call, which is probably about 4 hours or so,
Yeah.
I was like, if I don't show some kind of like this dude's solid
Skin
and he
in the
actually put skin in the game, this one's gonna slip through the cracks. And I had kind of a feeling like this one's different. So within 24 hours, I was like, prepared tickets. I bought the tickets. I'm legit serious. I do want to meet you. But then at the same time, I was like, what did I just do? So,
But yeah,
Yeah.
having a plan, and I think making it really clear that you're serious about that person. You don't have to be proposing marriage, but showing the individual that they have your focus and they have your attention, and that they're giving you the full attention and full ability to decide whether you two are a match or not. Don't date accidentally. Don't sit there and be like, well, I'm going to date 25 people at the same time as you, and if you win out, you win out. You know, give one person your attention at a time and see if that person is the right person for you. We're not dying tomorrow. You have time to actually sit and talk with one person at a time.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's giving me a little more hope. It's dragging me back, to maybe there's a chance of like me being more open to like a long distance relationship. So I don't know. How do you feel, Terry and Tara? Any changes of your mind, good or bad?
I don't know. I mean, I think that what I'm taking away from this is, and Juliana, I think you're just like the coolest. You really are.
Thank you.
But, something that you said earlier, that you'd met all these guys who weren't used to your personality, and it happened over and over and over again. And then later on in the podcast, you said to not settle. And what I'm getting from you is like, don't settle and don't change. If you had changed yourself to fit this mold, then your husband right now wouldn't have been attracted to you, and sometimes you get right to that point, right to where you want to give up and be done with it. And then there he is, So in your situation, and then in Everett and Celeste's situation too, I mean, you guys are just so perfect for each other, both couples. If I found that kind of perfection, I'd be cool with it. As far as going out and seeking it, probably not. But if I found somebody who I was that equal with, you bet. Definitely.
I remember now before it leaves again.
Okay, yeah.
So Everett was saying something about attracting, I think. You were saying something about that. And I think that was the key. So I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think the key is becoming the best version of you. When you work on your crud, you work on your healing, you work on being the best for, say, dad, and do the best in all the arenas, awesome at work and doing all the things you do. Just love your life and be happy internally with or without a person in your life. That person will show up. And then the other thing, so I think that was key, because if I wasn't doing the healing and the working, I was working on myself, I don't think we would have been ready for each other. We probably would have passed each other. And I would also say, I heard someone else say, it's kind of scary. A couple of people said that. And I would say, be willing to fail, and often fail a lot. Like, I think I dated like over 300 people. And
wow.
I was like, go. And I kept failing and failing and failing. And sometimes it worked and then fell, but I was able to pick myself back up and like, all right, that hurt. Let's do it again. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that because it just really kicks you in the gut. And I think the more you fail and the faster you fail, the more often you fail, you're going to find your person quicker.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I would say too, in addition to that, I know you said don't change, but I would say do change. Don't change for somebody else. Change for yourself. You are the person who's the right person for you. If you're out there looking for your person and you're not paying attention to whether you like yourself, you're never going to find that person who likes you for yourself, because you don't ever find yourself liking yourself. So set your goals, grow. When we met, I was going to college. I was getting all kinds of like $100,000 a year job offers. I was building an RV. I was doing all of these things just to teach myself and grow for myself, because I wanted it for myself. I wanted to know that I was the happiest that I could possibly be. and I wanted to like myself and go to bed at night with somebody that I was happy with every night. And then, you know, he came into my life and he was a good match for me. But I had to like myself first. I had to be able to take selfies and see a beautiful woman. I had to be able to see the potential for employers to want to hire me. I had to be able to see myself as a desirable individual. And if you can't do that for yourself, nobody else is going to be able to do it for you either.
Exactly.
That's excellent. Excellent segue. So if it's okay with you guys, we'd like to open it up to the audience for a few questions from the audience. We'll do this for about 20 minutes. So unless we get overwhelmed, but we'll try to do this for about 20 minutes and leave a little room for some after hours party, or after the podcast party.
After party.
The after party. See, like
you got too many.
That's what I
words.
get for speaking. That's what I get for speaking Spanish like most of the days. So I can't even speak English anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
While we're waiting for someone to come on, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Juliana was saying. You know, I think that I see this a lot in the groups, and I've kind of spoken about this before, but there's a lot of people who just haven't done kind of their own work yet, and they're not healthy in their own right. And everybody's got a magnetic personality. The real question is, what are you going to attract? So if you're kind of still toxic because you're bitter and still not over a relationship, don't expect to attract somebody that's healthy and happy and going to make you whole and everything's okay. I mean, toxic's going to attract toxic. So get your house in order first, get your foundation set, get everything prepared. And then, you know, once you're ready and you're happy with yourself, you'll attract like kind. So.
And I think too, honestly, I think that people are constantly evolving and people are constantly developing and growing and creating who they are, and it's changing all the time. But staying in a toxic mentality is just not healthy for yourself or anybody else.
I would definitely agree with that. I saw a lot of people, both male and female, while I was still single, who liked to say, oh, all men are this way or all women are that way. And all that advertises about you is that you aren't willing to see individuals for who they are.
Yeah.
Not all men are anyway. I can't think of a single trait, well, other than the obvious physical one, that would apply to all men. And I can't think of a single trait other than the obvious physical one that would apply to all women. So get that out of your vocabulary. Don't say all of these type of people are judgmental or all of these people expect this or expect that. You have friends, you meet people at the grocery store that within 10 minutes, you know that that's one of the people that's going to be your people, and you want to do girlfriend or guy friend hangouts and all that kind of stuff. You find amazing people every single day. Watch for the things in everybody that you encounter that makes them an amazing person. And you'll find yourself shifting into so much more of a positive mentality, and you won't need to hang on to all that bitterness. That's what forgiveness is for. It's not for the other person. So you can let go of all that bitterness and anger.
It's definitely for yourself, for sure.
Well, excellent. If you guys want to raise your hand, you can jump on, ask any of the couples questions, and we'll turn your video on, your mic on, or if you're in your pajamas, you don't want to be seen on camera, you can keep your camera off, but go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll have you jump in there and ask your question.
I think I kind of have a question for you, Corey. Like, I know you're a little more concerned about the LDRs, the long distance relationships. Like, what holds you back? If you found somebody that you were truly interested in and they lived in Utah or California, opposite end of the country, what kind of things would hold you back from saying, well, we'll give it a shot and see how it goes?
I think the two things for me, like, is I'm very kind of touchy-feely with like when I'm dating somebody, I want to hold their hand, I want to snuggle, I want to make out on the couch, I want to You know, I want that, be able to call them up and say, come over, you know, let's watch a movie, you know, make some popcorn and let's make, you know, watch a movie. And so I'm kind of that way. And so when it's long distance, I feel like I just don't feel like I'm getting what I want, you know. And I know that's selfish, but it's also, I like to give those things. Like I like to show my affections by my actions. Like, I mean, just saying you love somebody, you like somebody, it's just words. I like to show them, you know, take them out or buy them a gift or, you know, whatever. And so those are the kind of things I can't do when it's long distance. So that's one excuse. And then my other kind of pathetic excuse is I worry deeply that somebody is going to commit their life to come move to Virginia or something and be in DC, and then, you know, they make all these commitments and then it doesn't work out. Or, you know, that's my big fear, is that I'm going to ruin somebody's life because they took a chance and came out to Virginia, and it's like my fault because, you know, I'm kind of stuck out here because of work, and in DC I really can't move. And so how do I justify asking them to unroot themselves and come out to DC and follow me? What makes their career less important than my career? So those are kind of the things I think I struggle with.
So it sounds like you're a love language of physical touch primarily. And
yeah, I like to show it.
Yeah, we both kind of have that same, which was partly why we made a goal to never go more than 2 to 3 weeks without an in-person weekend together. I would not, for physical touch people, I would not say do 4 seasons and a road trip for your goal for how long you're going to date, because that is incredibly difficult for people who thrive off of physical touch. That was partly why we were like, yeah, I know pretty quickly if I'm in love with somebody or if I can't stand them. So I was even willing to move to Utah and not be married. But in your case, like with the careers and things like that, it sounds like it would be good for you to find somebody who has a very portable career. So somebody who does work from home, or somebody whose career can transport to Virginia, so that even if it doesn't work out between you two, they really haven't given up anything. They had job opportunities there anyway, and they wanted to make that growth. And that's kind of where I was going with the be intentional. Know that there is a logistical endpoint to the long distance portion of your relationship, and that the person can move there and be happy, even if it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
the other thing is,
looks like there's a couple of hands raised, but I don't know.
Jared's got. Did you want to say something, Jared?
Yeah, I was going to say that on a positive note, you normally, when you have an in-person date or so, and you kind of, it seems you don't get to know each other on a deeper level as much, but being long distance, it forces you to, like, you don't have an option. It's like you have to, I mean, yeah, you can still watch Netflix on video, like we did that a few times, but it really forces you to get to know the person, and not like that weird 20 questions game, just the conversation just flows. And I felt like by the time I met her in person, after it was about a month, I knew her. I was afraid I wouldn't know her, but I felt like I already knew who she was. I think that's a positive thing that comes with long distance. And like, I agree, definitely have a logistical point, because if we knew this was going on and on and on, and we didn't know how long this is going to go on, that would be harder. But since we knew she's retiring, she's getting out, I could count down the days. I was like, okay, this isn't forever. This is just this much more months, or I get and we'd always make book a new flight. So after the week, we're like, okay, I get to see you on this day. Yeah. And so we count down to the next day instead of just waiting for months on end. Like, when am I going to see my person again? And I think that made it a lot more doable.
That's excellent.
I would also say, just real quick before we get to the questions, I would not put limitations on Heavenly Father. I never expected a long distance relationship, and I just sort of took the approach of, I'm going to let him steer the ship, and I'm along for the ride, but I'm going to do the best I can and be happy where I'm at. And things just sort of start to come together. So why close the door if you don't have to?
All right, stop ganging up on me. All right.
I wasn't looking, honestly, I wasn't looking in Utah or in the Midwest. My primary like circle that I was even willing to talk to was from about Virginia down to Georgia on the East Coast. So yeah, I would agree. Don't put limitations on what Heavenly Father has available for you. Just seek happiness and see what comes along.
Okay.
We
Well,
do
let's
have
go
a
with
couple
Greg.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we got go with Greg.
Let's see.
Hey, Greg.
You guys, can you see me?
Yeah, hi.
So this question's, for the couples, and I was wondering if any of you guys had any challenges like anxiety or PTSD that maybe you guys had to overcome, while doing the long distance. Currently, I'm in a long distance relationship of over a year, and the distance is 8,500 miles plus, and I have a real fear of flying. So I was just wondering how you guys deal with it.
We both, can I say it?
Yeah, that's fine.
We both have PTSD. I think you have anxiety.
Yeah, we're both suffering from PTSD, and I'm suffering from anxiety, mostly military related, but it actually helps that both of us suffer from it because we understand each other better because of it.
I would say you said you have your fear of flying. I would say do what you got to do. Like we flew I flew because she couldn't leave because she's bound to the area because of, orders and everything. But I kept flying out there. But in the very end, we ended up driving from North Carolina all the way to Utah to RV. So do what you got to do. I've traveled, like being in the Marine Corps. I've done like Greyhound. I've done everything. So I've done road trips. I'd say figure out what works for you. If the flights are too scary for you and that's not something you feel you can overcome right now, I'd say figure out a way, but there's definitely a way to do it.
Yeah, maybe see if the other person can travel to you if you really truly can't get over that anxiety right now. I would just say either find a way or set boundaries. Like if you really, really cannot do an 8,500 mile flight and the other person, for whatever logistical reasons, can't come, it's okay to say, you know what, I need to limit my dating pool to somewhere that I can drive to. Even if that drive is an 8-hour drive, put the limitations on that will support your mental health.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I had a really small circle, within my local area, and something happened. I had an interaction with God, and I really can't explain it, but it was a real feeling, and the relationship is really great, and it's 14 months right now. I have a plan to travel in July, once the tourist restrictions are lifted. But back before I was LDS, before I converted, I would just be drinking on the plane, and that's not an option now. But I was thinking maybe get some anti-anxiety medication, but I'm still really nervous because I do have an 18-hour flight from New York City to Manila.
Yeah, I would say definitely pursue the medications and things, and maybe seek like EMDR therapy and things like that. That can sometimes help ease some of those things. There are also some electronic therapies that you can do that actually send pulses to your brain that help you relax a little bit. So there are therapies out there that can help ease that a little bit. It might not make it go away, but it can help you cope better if you work at it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg. All right, I think Tom was next, and then we'll go with Bassam.
All right. So I guess it's actually for both couples. I think with Juliana and Jared, you guys had it easier because, Julian, you had that whole, retirement date and all that kind of stuff. But it still goes back to what Corey was talking about, logistical, what is your advice? You jump into a long distance relationship, ignoring the distance and just kind of getting to know each other and then just determine the logistics later of who's going to move where? Or is that something like for Everett and Celeste, is that something you've thought about since the beginning and about how to deal with that? How to deal like who's going to move where, or how to deal with, you guys both sell and move somewhere in the middle, or, how did that play into the decision of you want to be in a long distance relationship?
I think, you have to consider that. I mean, if neither of you can move, then there's no sense in even pursuing it, right? So certain things you have to consider upfront, or else, you're just wasting your time. So yeah, you have to consider, did the kid situation work? Does the job situation work? Does the moving situation work? Probably even before if we work, because you just need to know is there a possibility that this could work out? If the answer is no, then it really doesn't matter if our connection works, if that makes any sense. So yeah, you have to think about those things from the get-go, for sure. At least that's my opinion.
I agree. I was actually going through our old polos the other day, and I was going to like day 1, 2, or 3. And we weren't in a relationship at that point, but even as early as 1, 2, 3, we were kind of saying, well, what I'm looking for in a relationship. I think during that stage is where we kind of fished around. I think if we both were like, hey, I'm never leaving Utah because my kids, and if she's like, I'm never leaving North Carolina because my kids, and we knew it would never happen, I think it kind of would have naturally went its different path. But I agree, Celeste, that we definitely had to kind of get that stuff out of the way so we both knew we weren't wasting each other's times.
Right.
I would definitely agree. And I would also say be solution oriented. Now, if you're governed under a court order and you can't move, that's one thing. But if it would be inconvenient, or it would be a challenge for me or something, explore what types of solutions might exist to overcome those challenges. It doesn't mean that you have to implement those things right now, but if the answer is I don't have good job prospects there's nothing stopping you from looking at what jobs there are there and seeing if you could within the next year qualify to get some of those jobs if you got extra education or if you got extra certifications. Look for reasons why you can succeed instead of reasons why you can't. And that's true not just logistically, but emotionally. If it's possible to make things succeed, find a way to make it succeed. It's the same thing if somebody said, hey, I think you should go back to college. Well, okay, I'm in my 40s and I don't think that a 40-year-old should be going to college with a bunch of 20-year-olds. So I don't think that's very good. Is that the answer? Or is it, well, let me see what options there are out there so that I can better my career and not be making $10 an hour when I'm supposed to be supporting kids? Your whole life needs to be about finding solutions instead of finding problems.
I'll say also for us, like I've said, probably ad nauseum, that I've just been really big on letting things happen as they're going to happen. And I truly believe if Heavenly Father is saying, hey, you know what, I've got the right thing for you here and I'm kind of moving you in that direction, He's going to work out those details. I don't need to worry about that. And if we get to a point where it's like, hey, you know what, I'm stuck here, you're stuck there, it's just not going to work, then that's not the right person for us. And at that point, we know. But like I said, I've just taken a completely open approach about this and let the pieces fall where they may. And they kind of keep falling into place. And I tell Celeste all the time, like, have you ever been to Portland? Like, obviously she has, but like, we got a lot of homeless people here and it's kind of a dump. And I mean, it's beautiful in the surrounding areas, but people poop on the sidewalks. I mean, welcome to Portland, right? So those are the kind of things that I'm like, I just want you to be aware of, like the situation, where everything's at, how it goes. And if it's going to be right, those pieces are going to fall into place. I don't feel like I need to worry about all of that. And if they don't fall into place, cool. Then I know that this is not going to be the right relationship for me and for them. And that's okay. And I'm ready to move on and just kind of find something else. So yeah, I think if you just take that approach, if you're ready, you're healthy, and you're just like, you will attract the right person and all those little pieces will fall into place. I let Heavenly Father worry about the details. He's got that figured out because I have no idea how it's going to work.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. When you keep in mind that every relationship you get into is going to end, it's either going to end because somebody ends it or because you die. And that's discounting, of course, being sealed together forever. But in this life, your relationships end. Every relationship you have, whether friendship or marriage, it will end. And so if you get comfortable with the idea that that's a reality, you can look at it and say, do I like this person well enough that I can make it through that relationship ending? or that I'm going to make this relationship last for as long as it possibly can because we just work that well.
Yeah.
I think that in the end, you just have to consider if the individual you're pursuing or thinking of pursuing, if they're worth all the, or in your mind or in your heart, if it's worth all the added time and effort, because there is definitely more effort into a long distance relationship than there ever would be in a one that's local. So, is it worth it? Are they worth it? Is it worth the risk? Those are the questions you just have to weigh as you head into it.
And I think too, if you're looking at it and you ask yourself, what if this was that person? What if this was the person that I could grow old with and go sit on the beach in our wheelchairs together and just be happy because we're that good of friends? Don't ask yourself, what if this fails? Ask yourself, what if it succeeds? And ask yourself what you'd be willing to risk to have that succeed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom. I hope that answered your question.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Good to see you again, too.
Thanks. All right, we got Bassam here.
Okay, this was really cool. It's nice to get to know you guys. And personally, I believe that long distance relationships can work. I think one of the things that we've got to incorporate into it is lots of opportunities to see each other, and not always in like the ideal circumstances. So go on a camping trip, don't book that 4-star luxury cruise or first class seats to Europe and that sort of thing. I think it's good to just kind of let things take a natural progression and just see each other a lot more. And personally, for me, there's no choice. So I'm trying to believe that that's gonna, that long distance relationship should work. And by the way, Juliana, it's nice to see you as well. And we were part of a polo group, Marco Polo group for a while. I didn't comment very much on there, but I saw the progression of their relationship over the before they actually started dating. I don't know, was it? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so my question my question is about kids. So I have a couple of beautiful, a handsome young man and a beautiful daughter, both adults. And my ex-wife has remarried, and the relationship between my kids and the kids of the gentleman she married is just amazing. I mean they play games together every day. I mean, sometimes I'm on the phone with my son and he almost okay, Dad, I have to let you go. I have to get in touch with Nathan, and Nathan is his blended half brother, and he's so excited to have the relationship. When my daughter was at BYU as a student, she would call on her brother on the other side, from the blended family, just to get advice and suggestions and that sort of thing. So it does work. The question for me is that wasn't part of my doing. I didn't participate in that blended relationship for my kids and my ex-wife's new family. So what are some of the things that you would suggest or that you've done, and this is to both parties, that you think would really strengthen the relationship of the kids? I mean, most of us who are going to get married are probably going to get into a blended family. And what are some of the things that it's going to be different for everyone, I'm sure, but any suggestions there about blending families? There's a couple, by the way, let me just also share, there's a couple from the UK that I've listened to he runs the Come Follow Me out of one of the UK groups, and he married a lady and they have between them now like 8 kids, and it's just like fun. In fact, for their weddings they did the Sound of Music thing, where they're all standing in line and all that stuff, and they look like they're having so much fun together as a blended family, but they're young. The kids mostly are all young, so it's a little different. But when you have adult kids and maybe late teenage kids and that sort of thing, how do you how do you blend them and sort of make it a good relation, because most of us are going to have to be faced with that situation at some time.
Is that for us?
Who are you
For
asking the
anyone.
question, Basam?
I think both parties would be good. Juliana, maybe you guys can start.
I would say the first thing is to remember that your children, they're all individual people and they have their own right to love or not love anybody. But making sure that you're creating an environment where they're comfortable talking to you about the people that they love, making sure that you're not forcing them to choose between parents, but also setting boundaries. Like in our house, the rule is you don't have to love anybody in the house, but you do have to treat everybody with respect and dignity. So we create opportunities for the kids to interact with each other and to find commonalities, but we also don't force them to like each other. Whether they like each other, that's up to them. But we do require that they're kind to each other and that they treat each other with dignity. And I think respecting the fact that they are their own individual human beings and you are not in charge of who they like and who they don't is really key in successfully blending a family and accepting that they just might not get along, and that's okay. They might not like each other. And knowing that having people have contention and having people argue with each other, that doesn't mean divorce. Having to go to each other and say, hey, there's an issue within the family that we need to address, does not mean I want to break up with you. It means we're a team and we need to address this together. And understanding that within each other and knowing that, I think goes a long way towards blending. And you're going to have, especially with older kids, you're going to have friction. It's a thing. And so just accepting that as a reality and not taking it personally. You're going to have somebody say, you're not my parent. You're going to have somebody say, I hate you.
Yep.
And knowing that the same as with your own kids may say that at some point, and understanding that and being okay with it is the key, I think, to having harmony in your home, even when there's not really harmony in your home.
My parents got married when I was 18 years old, and I call my dad, even though he's a stepdad. We didn't meet him until I was 18, but I think the coolest thing that my dad did is he really respected the relationship that my mom and I had. And it wasn't like all of a sudden he was there and our whole lives changed. Every Thursday, my mom and I still went and did our thing, and he had a lot of respect for that. He has 2 sons too. He did the same thing with them, where it's like you remember a special bond that you had, and that doesn't have to go away just because you got married. In fact, it made us a lot closer because then, all of a sudden I had time with just him as well. So I think it's important to not, cut off all of those special times or special memories, that you need to somehow keep those going as well.
Great. So my situation is a little different. Like I have got 2 kids. I've got one that's got Asperger's and one that's on the spectrum. She's autistic. And so I come with baggage when it comes to children. And so I had to be upfront. I mean, they're not as simple as just, I don't want to say normal kids, because they're normal in their own right, but they have different challenges. They have different parenting needs versus maybe my other children. And so that is, like, for me personally, that's something that does worry me just in general, because I've raised them. They've been a part of my life since they were born. And so kind of adding that into another family and expecting someone to love them and understand them the way that I do, it's asking a lot, but they do come with me. They're my children, and they're part of the package, but it does worry me. I think that anyone with special needs kids, that's a challenge. And so, just got to be upfront and be like, okay, these are the challenges that my kids have, and how would you deal with it, or not deal with it, because for me, it's like maybe in those moments where my son is having an Asperger's moment, like maybe just let me deal with it. Don't try to defend me because he's being belligerent or whatever. And maybe you leave the room and I'll deal with the kids or whatever. Like you have to come up with some sort of plan that's going to help that transition when you have special needs kids, because it can be challenging. So
I definitely agree there. I have a couple of kids that are on the spectrum as well. And it's definitely different parenting style, because you have to consciously know that they're not being rude
Right.
little jackholes when they're just not understanding the social cues.
right.
And so that's just a whole lot of communication between you two. And it's needing to find somebody who is loving and accepting towards people who are maybe not processing things the way that you would expect a standard person to process them.
Right. Yeah.
If I might add just a comment, and you see this in business quite a bit, especially for like owners of companies, self-owned companies who employ their kids or their children or family members in the company. They tend to be tough on the kids. Most of the time, it's not always the case, but they make them like really go through the ringer and earning their keep, because they want to establish this feeling that they're not playing favoritism and that sort of thing. But I think when it comes to families, it's important that we don't look down on our kids to win the love of the other kids, and that just came to mind as you guys were speaking, and that those traditions that you had before, whether it's Christmas traditions or Thanksgiving traditions, whatever it is, those are also maintained. So it's sort of like a shared tradition. If it's too much, then maybe you take turns every year. Next year we'll do the other households traditions and stuff like that. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bassam.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You've already established a pattern of your life, and it's not fair, to that to your kids, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there would have to be a balance. I'm sure that Juliana and Jared kind of figured out maybe with this past Christmas, like I'm sure that each of you came with traditions and ways of doing things, and you probably had to kind of find a way to blend that, maybe take a little from each other, or like Bassam said, every other year. I don't know how y'all manage that, but that definitely is something to think about.
I also think it's really important to know like where kind of just what your parenting thoughts are. For example, my daughter had brain surgery earlier this year, and I was terrified, and I was actually talking to somebody. I hadn't met him yet, it was online, but it was so crazy because he said, well, isn't she 18? And it was like, well, yeah, she is. But so it's like, well, so you're done. And I guess I don't view things that way. It's not like I raised my kids to 18.
Yeah.
And I'm in the clear. I'll probably be a mom for the rest of my life. So I think that finding somebody who understands, how you look at parenting and how long you're going to parent. None of my kids live with me. I don't have anybody living in the basement. I'm not into all of that, but if my kids need me, I'll be there for sure.
Yeah, and that's something we kind of talked through too. My oldest is turning 18 in a couple of months, and it's becoming more and more clear that he is not moving out when he turns 18. But we've kind of talked through it and figured out like what we're willing to do as far as while he's in college, and we just are sort of taking it as it comes and encouraging them to seek success in their life. And we're not paying their way once they're 18. Definitely, we're trying to help them find building blocks for how to be successful in their own right. But we're also looking at it and going, with the housing market right now and everything else, I don't know that I could be successful if I was an 18-year-old trying to make it on my own. So we're also trying to give them the tools to succeed. So it's okay to be flexible with your parenting. It's okay to look at things and say, maybe the way that things our parents did, expecting us to move out right when we were 18, expecting that mission or marriage or college path to happen right away, accept that some of that might be a little bit fluid and that people might just have to find their own way, and that's kind of okay. And the more that you can kind of communicate with each other and just be on the same page about how you're going to approach it, I think the more easy that is. I won't say too easy because everything's always a challenge, but it becomes easier to face those challenges when you're viewing yourself as a team and not as combatants.
I would also say too, I've seen lots of guys who go into a relationship and they have kids from, you know, mixed marriages sort of thing. And the guy automatically comes in and he's like, well, I'm the head of the household and I'm laying down the law, and that never goes over well. I just think that there's kind of a situation like Celeste was saying, where if something's going on with her kids, you kind of treat that with kid gloves. Like, okay, this is your situation. I'm here to help, but I'm not here to be the boss. And vice versa. I mean, I feel like that's kind of one thing that's been very difficult for a lot of people. And I know people who have said, if I can get out of being in a relationship with somebody else with kids, I would much rather do that and not have to deal with somebody else's kids. It can be a tricky situation. I would just say for anybody that's considering it, don't go in all guns blazing. You're not the parent. You're not somebody that's going to like lay down the law for them. And this is my house now. This is how it is. You're just asking for trouble if you do that. So.
Well, great. Thanks everyone for all of the comments. I think it was a very good discussion. I think we covered most of everybody's topics about this. So I really appreciate the time everybody had. And thank you, Juliana, and for you guys, and for coming on here, and for Jared, and for and I'm going to say on behalf of everybody, thank you for your service. And Jared, thank you for your continued service. So, and then Everett and Celeste, of course, we all know you, we all love you, but you know, thank you for coming and being in the hot seat.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun to watch you guys squirm. It was awesome.
And fight a little. That was exciting.
You guys were like doing the slide for the first time.
The
That's
most
so very
intense
nice.
fight we've had.
Yes. So this is the time, everyone, where we're going to end the podcast with everybody, with a big thank you to everybody who participated and who and we're going to open it up to everybody here. We're going to stop the recording. We'll have Everett do that since he's got control.